Convenience, please allow me now to switch to English. I remind everyone that CAEI is and will remain a multilingual conference, so please keep addressing the Secretariat in the language of your choice. It's always a pleasure. This year's webinars are being offered as conversation starters. In them, we go over CAEI's main conference theme and sub-themes. It is an opportunity to set the table and facilitate exchanges and conversations among future CAEI attendees. Today's session will run for about 60 minutes. Our moderator will share some opening remarks and will introduce the session. Our speakers will take over and will share with you valuable information and insight. The presentation will be followed by a Q&A period. You are all invited to please submit your comments or questions through the chat window available within the room. Today's webinar is titled Higher Education Institutions as Catalysts for Innovation, Collaboration, and Development. In this session, our speakers will share some of the important findings compiled in their book, Globalizing University Research, Innovation, Collaboration, and Competition. To lead us into today's session, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, CLARE OVERMANN, Head of Higher Education Initiatives and Director of the Center for International Partnerships at the Institute of International Education. Among others, she manages a range of programs focused on the global higher education community and aim to enhance academic cooperation and mobility. I want to thank our speakers today. Our moderator, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Luis. And thank you to CAEI for this wonderful opportunity to moderate this webinar today on such an important and timely topic. We're in a very unique moment where innovation is needed more than ever. And while higher education institutions have always played an important role in this, their role will only continue to increase. We are seeing more and more institutions taking a closer look at their global research strategies, and even our governments are emphasizing international research collaboration and innovation by backing new centers of excellence initiatives and supporting more junior researchers to have international experiences. Here at IIE, we do a lot of work to advance research collaboration. We actually recently concluded administering the Global Innovation Initiative, funded by the U.S. Department of State, that supported multilateral research partnerships between universities in the U.S., UK, India, Brazil, Indonesia, and China. And that was a really great program that demonstrated to me a growing understanding by our governments and by a broader community of the key role that higher education institutions play in sparking innovation. So I'm really excited to delve deeper on this subject today with the help of our panelists and with everyone on the webinar. We're so lucky to have Dr. KIKI CARUSON and Dr. Karen HOLBROOK as panelists today to shed some expert light on this topic. I've had the pleasure of working in various capacities with Karen and KIKI throughout the past several years and was able to witness firsthand just how much they have to contribute to this topic of internationalization of research at higher education institutions. In 2016, IIE and the AIFS Foundation partnered with Karen and KIKI on the publication Globalizing in University Research, as Luis just mentioned, which has been a really great resource for the field, and which I know will be mentioned again shortly. So let me conclude my opening remarks by briefly introducing our distinguished panelists. KIKI CARUSON is a professor in the School of Interdisciplinary Global Studies at the University of South Florida and serves as the Assistant Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Global Affairs for USF World, which is the university's international division. As a member of USF World's leadership team, Dr. CARUSON is responsible for growing outbound student mobility, comprehensively mapping USF's global engagement, and for advancing the university's international research activities and partnerships. Dr. CARUSON was previously a faculty fellow with USF's Office of Research and Innovation and participated in the U.S.-India Educational Foundation's India Fulbright Program for Senior International Education Administrators in 2013. And Karen HOLBROOK is the Regional Chancellor for the University of South Florida's Sarasota-Manatee, having served in a variety of senior positions at USF, including Senior Vice President for Global Affairs and International Research and Senior Vice President for Research and Innovation. Dr. Holbrook has held numerous leadership positions at institutions across the country, including serving as president of the Ohio State University and most recently as the interim president of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Dr. Holbrook has served on many boards, including the American Association for the Advancement of Science, AAAS, the Association of American Universities, and the Council of Graduate Schools, among many others. And at IIE, we're also very fortunate to have had Dr. Holbrook as a Board of Trustee member since 2005. So over the next, let's say 20 or 30 minutes or so, Karen and Kiki will take us through their presentation, and then we'll have ample time at the end for questions and discussion. And throughout the presentation, you may submit questions via the chat function, and Luis and I will collect them for discussion at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen now. I'll switch the slide and then give you the presenter functionality.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Claire. I thought I would start out by mentioning that many of you probably have seen the recent article that was on the cover of Higher Education, of the Chronicle of Higher Education, with John Sexton awarding a degree to a student in NYU Abu Dhabi. But what was disconcerting was the title of that said, "The End of a Global Era, How Grand Plans for International Education Are Fading." And then when you went inside the journal, you found that there was an article by Karen Fisher that was entitled "The Sunset of International Education's Global Era." I think that is absolutely the antithesis of what is actually going on today. Critical, as Claire has already mentioned, particularly for innovation. So I thought I'd start out with a slide that comes right out of the front of our book that said, "Globalization has changed how nations and communities envision and support economic development in the world's competitive landscape, how businesses seek talent, services, and products across borders, how geopolitical power is redefined and knowledge is redistributed, how citizens perceive and expand their own opportunity, how universities refocus their efforts in all aspects of their missions and embrace both competition and collaboration and promote innovation in preparing our students for an ever-changing world." I think this is more accurate about what is going on globally today, and while there are some hiccups, as we all are aware of, it has still never been more important, and I think I can change the slide. So I don't know how it went backwards, but it did, because I'm going the wrong direction. Let's try that. Okay, so we'll start out with an outline of what we want to talk about. We want to talk about at the front end, setting the stage, and how important is international research to nations, to our university, to innovation, collaboration, and competition. How important are partnerships in our success, and how do we measure that success? We do it a lot by global rankings, by publications, by individual awards. You will see a number of those ways of measuring them and who is measuring them at the end. And then how do we incentivize, recognize, and reward global research? And most importantly, how do we recognize, incentivize the global researcher? So let me put my glasses on and maybe I can see this better for changing it. Okay. So we want to talk about the importance of research. And one of the ways we wondered, what are the topics that are most important in international research? And by going through a number of papers and going through a number of reports and looking at how many times all of these different words were mentioned when we were going through them, and then counting them, and then making the size of the print proportional to what seems to be very important in international research. And you will see that the largest size is innovation, global, globalization, and international. And the other smaller sizes of the titles will tell you how many times they're mentioned. Again, competitiveness and competition are mentioned. Interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and multidisciplinary are mentioned, as is collaboration, entrepreneurship. And you'll see all of these words repeated again when we start talking about what are the innovation agenda of nations. So these are the topics that are very important around the kinds of things that are relevant to international research. So research and development are very central, and the quote by Battelle that anything is possible through research and development. We solve many of the most critical challenges, and we all know that by the, excuse me, by the importance of research and development in solving the world's problems, things like the Millennium Development Goals, which have now passed to the Sustainability Development Goals. You can see how important, and we know how important research and development is to economic growth, which is why nations have innovation agendas. We know how important it is to industry and to job creation, and all of us in the higher education market today are concerned about job creation, workforce preparation, how that is changing, and how we can prepare our students the best. Political stability, peace, and stability are very important, and research plays a role in that, as it does in rising the middle class. So why is it important to the university? And I think anybody in the university knows how critically important it is. First of all, it capitalizes on the passion of our faculty. Faculty come to our universities, particularly our research universities, with a passion for their research activities and for collaborating in research activities. It provides an environment for our students to be in part of the innovation. And I think all of us, again, know how important it is for our students to be involved in experiential activities as part of their curriculum. So this is one way they can get firsthand experience in doing something that's relevant and working close by with faculty. It encourages entrepreneurship within the faculty and helps provide solutions to local and global problems. It enhances the reputation of the university. Many of the universities are based on the amount of research funding that they achieve and their research reputation, their research awards. It generates income for the university, particularly through commercialization, technology transfer, and it can enhance economic development of the regions. Many times our regions are hubs or ecosystems for research, and as a result of that, for economic development in the area. Creates jobs, we've already mentioned that, and it's very valuable to industry in the region. Our partnerships are very often with government, industry, and academia, and it helps to grow business within the area. So all of these things, and you can cite many, many more from your own institution of why research is very important. So, as our book had emphasized, by its title in particular, research is a central focus for innovation. That's something that's very clear. It's very central to collaboration. That's how we build partnerships, both at home and abroad. That's how we create development. And it's very important in competitiveness. So while these are all the foundations, innovation, competition, and collaboration for research, they are also the outcomes of research and are critical to the university. So what's the importance of innovation? This has been known for many, many years that it is the driver of global competitiveness. I think if you went back maybe even 20 or so years, innovation started to become a buzzword. It's now not a buzzword. It's just simply embedded in virtually everything we do, whether it's in preparing a curriculum for our students, whether it's developing in research, whether it's designing all kinds of different things for our universities in terms of fundraising even, but just about everything we do connects with what it is that we do, innovation. So it's the basis. It's a driver for competitiveness, for growth in the economy, for our security, and for prosperity across the globe. Research and innovation are key to solving spiraling youth unemployment around the world. And I think when you look at the number of young people, the percentage of young people in the population who are unemployed and not necessarily educated, research and innovation become key to finding places for them in society and for growing a role for them in their futures. So successful innovation is influenced by the policies of government, and we're going to come back to those, and actually more than just policies, but also by initiatives and how ecosystems are developed and how important higher education is in developing these government policies, and we'll talk about them. But there are a number of policies that are related. Protection of intellectual property, R&D incentives. Innovation resources, obviously the basis is talent. How do we build the workforce? How do we build science and technology talent? How do we prepare our students so that they can go out in the world and become innovators? It also requires funding from our universities, funding from governments, funding from outside agencies, funding from donors, but many sources of funding are essential. We also need access to graduate, undergraduate, and postgraduate education. And today, now, the research expertise is not just starting at the undergraduate level, but it's at the high school level as well. And interestingly enough, if you start looking back at what's going on in your grade schools and also in your middle schools, you will find that there are many programs now in engineering, in all kinds of new enterprises very early on, so that when students come to college, they are very different students than they used to be when they came to college. And all of us need to have physical facilities, and they need to be more and more sophisticated as technology changes, and technology changes so fast. So for us to keep up with the technology, for us to keep up with the infrastructure, it's very difficult in higher education. So what are the sources of innovation? To advance an innovation-based economy, virtually any scientific, technological field, and also many of the social sciences provide a basis for innovation. And in fact, all of them really need to be interacting and in interdisciplinary programs together. But life sciences today continually advance through biomaterials, personal genomics, stem cell applications, devices, surgical implants, molecular diagnostics, pharmaceuticals. And all of these are not isolated simply to medicine and simply to the life sciences, but connect as well with many, many other fields. Information and communication technology is where we see huge changes right now through artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning, blockchain, data analytics, robotics, the Internet of Things. But the Internet of Things has now become the Internet of medical things, the Internet of nano things, the Internet of everything. So all of the new technologies are really changing the workforce. They're changing all kinds of things in terms of advancing innovation. Energy, of course, is always on the forefront with renewable energy, biofuels, hybrids, photovoltaics, and chemicals and advanced materials and nanotechnology. That's just a sampling, because when you look at the sources of innovation, they really aren't simply just science and technology based, but they take in all disciplines and all areas where innovation is happening today. National innovation agendas, setting the stage, firms, government agencies, and universities, and they are all involved in national innovation agendas. The future belongs to countries that are engines of innovation. If you look at what has gone on in all of these different innovation agendas, you will see many of the themes are very much the same. Looking at the agendas of Singapore starting out, they emphasize manufacturing and in information technology. Innovation agenda in Singapore is in 4 phases, but right now it's focusing on intellectual capital, entrepreneurism, knowledge-based economy. China is focused on universities, and it's focused on networks of public and private partnerships. India, decade of innovation, technology innovation, with academia at the very heart of all of it, as well as research institutes. The United Kingdom has invested in more than 130 higher education institutions. Chile has a national innovation policy that has 8 pillars, including culture, environment, entrepreneurship, culture, human capital. France has its national innovation research and innovation agenda based on health, welfare, food, biotechnology in the context of environmental urgency, the IT revolution, aging the population. I won't go on with all of them, but I think you can see that all of them are focusing on global problems that are not just for their country, but are for the world. All of them take advantage of higher education. All of them take advantage of kinds of things that are essential to move their countries forward in the competitive realm. So, last 2 slides for me are on competitiveness, and this has changed because it used to be competition was a challenge, but it's now a strategy for how nations grow stronger, grow better, grow economically more stable. Depends on the productivity and how a nation uses its human capital and physical resources. It is absolutely central to economic policies. And for a nation, what provides the competitive edge? For a university, they're all the same things. Innovation, as we've shown with innovation initiatives, flexible workforce, global talent. We all know also how important it is to have international students in our universities and for those international students to stay and participate in the workforce. Higher order educational attainment, the linkages between higher education, the private sector and government, and an entrepreneurial culture. We also have to have tools of development, to have diplomacy, defense, vibrant capital markets, and very strong IT protection and regulatory frameworks. And finally, if you look at the Global Competitiveness Report that comes out from the World Forum, the World Economic Forum every year, they have what are called the competitive, they produce also a competitive index, and these are ranked by variables that are called 12 pillars of competitiveness. I think you can see that they're all things that we have talked about already. I won't read them all to you, but they're infrastructure, they're ICT, they're financial, labor, products, business, health, skills, all of the kinds of things that are critically important to becoming competitive and critically important to the innovation of a nation or of a university. So at this point, I will pass it on to Kiki.
Buenas tardes. Can you hear me? Because I've been having a lot of trouble hearing you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I'm here with you. I'm in Colombia. It's a pleasure to join you. We're looking forward to the conference in October. And as we think about, I'm good. So as we think about the theme of the conference as hubs of knowledge and innovation, and we know so many of you who are joining us today are from countries other than Canada and the U.S., we're including a slide from the World Economic Forum on Latin America from in Brazil back in March, and we've taken this wording right out of the report. Some of the challenges that are faced by many countries in Latin America are not unique. Karen mentioned unemployment and finding occupations and skill sets for young people. But the first sentence, labor markets are being challenged by technological disruption, demographic change, and shifting business models. That's really true of all of our countries. We're all grappling with that. And the innovative strategies are necessary to meet emerging talent needs. So what universities do best is prepare workers for jobs that we cannot even envision at this time. And the importance of education to this innovation hub is it can't be understated. So because we all come from a university background, part of our discussion today is the centrality of, or the emphasis today is the centrality of universities in contributing to innovation. I think we could do a better job of integrating universities with industry and our employers and government agencies in figuring out how best to proceed in creating a talent workforce. We have partnerships, and we're going to talk about partnerships, but there's always more work to be done to be able to harness the creativity that's housed in universities and make that real in free industry and business and university and the government. So Karen mentioned the 12 pillars that of competitiveness that the World Economic Forum uses, and this is a visualization of that data. There are many, many variables. My only point here is to underscore the importance of education and access to basic education, skill development in helping countries achieve greater competitiveness, greater innovation. And Luis will be posting this presentation, so if this is hard, if any of the slides are hard for you to see, you'll have access to the full presentation after the webinar. Okay, partnerships. So we can't do it alone. We need to partner with those who are in our immediate ecosystem and also those across the globe. So this next section will be devoted to discussing some of our insights about the importance of partnerships. So especially in the arena of research, we cannot overstate the importance of partnerships. As Karen also mentioned, those global challenges that we face, those large-scale issues that the Millennium Development Goals are dedicated to are transcend any one discipline, transcend any one researcher, transcend any one institution. So we find ourselves out of necessity. We must work across borders. We must work across disciplines. And these opportunities, while they can be challenging in some respects, and we'll discuss that, are absolutely critical. And so these types of partnerships, research partnerships, provide access for different types of equipment to a diversity of perspectives, which is so critical in solving complex problems, and help us to think about solutions in different ways, different types of funding. We're all in need of funding for research, and some countries are doing a better job at funding international research efforts than others. I wish I could say the U.S. was doing a better job than we are. And then this last quote is especially important. Globalization has made multidisciplinary work essential. International cooperation is not a luxury, it is the foundation of the future. So for those of you who are visual, a partnership ecosystem, I'm sure you can think of some other partners or types of partners that we haven't included here. But of course, this only represents the diversity of partners that a university might engage with in terms of pushing the research agenda forward and innovating. So a few insights about academic partnerships. For those of us in the university, many of us are responsible for managing these international academic partnerships or domestic academic partnerships. But certainly these are rich reservoirs for research collaboration. When looking for partners, we look for those who have complementary discipline strengths or areas of research expertise that contribute to an area where our university is strong or emerging. Shared goals and mutually beneficial outcomes, especially important when we're talking about intellectual property and who owns what and who gets credit for what. And when we're talking about access to equipment and purchasing equipment, certainly important things to think about. And that resources are dedicated from both partners and that there's buy-in from the top, that essential stakeholders believe in the partnership and are willing to commit resources to not only launching a partnership, but sustaining it in ways that advance a research agenda that's productive, not just for the universities, but for the larger society as well. And then, of course, we have many non-academic partners, just as important in terms of research and innovation and finding new solutions to complex problems. Obviously, business and industry. Hopefully at your university, you have an office that helps you to connect with industry and business, facilitates those relationships. Civic organizations, our local communities are very, very important. Professional organizations, academic societies, our governments, whether they be at the national level, agencies, or local governments, are very important too, because again, only through working together can we find solutions that are truly innovative and new. So how do we do this? Well, a lot of it is relationship-based, right? So we have to know each other to trust each other and to be able to work together with confidence. So personnel exchanges, exchanging personnel between facilities, exchanging students, can be really wonderful ways of increasing trust between partners, cross partners. Again, just a graphic to show that from our perspective, we're on the U.S. side, that international collaboration in publication, science and engineering articles is growing dramatically. I'm going to show you a graph about that shows you why that's so important. And there have been a number of publications, not just our own book, many publications about the importance of international collaboration in the research arena. And again, it can't be overstated how important that global dimension is. Here is how we think about it at the University of South Florida when we think about what goes into global research. It's not just the researchers and the students and the academic programs or colleges. There's a whole ecosystem that supports international efforts. We all know that pursuing international research can be a complex endeavor, may require a little bit more persistence, but that it's well worth the effort. And so what we've done here, and we include this in our book as well, is to give a sense of sort of how we visualize the ecosystem for supporting global research at a university. And that extends all the way from the international office, which is a central player to research, but also to human resources for payroll, business offices, procurement, our Office of Industry, commercialization, any type of clinical trials, the travel office, even information technology and communications. All these offices that may not come immediately to mind when you think about international research are very important, and it's important that they understand their roles and work together to support those researchers, whether they be faculty or students who are engaged in international projects. Okay, measuring success. We're always asked about the return on investment, so here are some suggestions. Obviously, patents and technological innovation and publications, things you can count easily, go into assessing research impact. But these types of outputs are very important because they send a signal to others about the innovative capacity of the institution. I'm going to talk just a moment before I get to measuring the return on investment about global rankings. Only because we may disagree about the methodology, but they are fundamental to many decisions that are made by students, made by researchers, and made by governments in terms of who they work with and what they're willing to contribute. So you're probably familiar with the major ranking agencies. Shanghai Jiaotong, Academic Ranking of World Universities, is well known. QS, Times Higher Ed, U.S. News and World Report. Again, we may disagree about the methodology, but why are they important? Well, because they influence who chooses who as a partner. Governments use them to decide where to send students. Some governments use them to choose where they send their researchers. International students use them to choose where they're going to study overseas. So these rankings are an important barometer of the university capability, innovation, and are driven in large part by research, and we can see that here. So this is a graphic courtesy of QS. There's a lot going on in this graph, but I point your attention to the green circles. The red boxes are reputational. So those are how the various metrics are calculated based on individual perceptions of a university. But the green boxes capture research that can be counted. So whether that be patents, publications, grants, and the like, things that propel research forward. And you can see how heavily research, and in many cases, international research weighs in terms of determining a university's ranking. Here's an example from our own university, the University of South Florida, on the impact of internationally co-authored publications. And hopefully you can see on this diagram that most of our researchers are publishing with domestic partners. Those who are publishing with an international co-author are achieving much higher citation impact scores, and their volume of publications accounts for so much higher, 3 times that of the citation index, and about half of all of our citations. So they're, as we would say, punching way above their weight, and are an essential component to our research portfolio. Bottom line, collaborating and co-authoring with a partner outside of your country increases the breadth of your work, the reach of your work, and gives you a higher citation. Okay, so that wraps up my section. I'm going to come back to you at the end, and I'm going to turn this section over to my colleague, Karen Holbrook.
Thank you, Kiki. The next section is on incentivizing, recognizing, and rewarding the global researcher. I think in many cases, incentivizing really is more about supporting than incentivizing, because I think most of the faculty who decide to work globally and the students who join them are excited about it, and it's something that they really want to do. So it's really helping them, and then recognizing that in a very special way, because it is a little different than, it's not a little different, it's a lot different than conducting research locally. So here are a few examples of best practices. First of all, you have to have the time to do this. Many times you need to have travel time, and you need to have time for consistent work, not an hour here and an hour there, but you have to have the time. But just having the time is not enough to promote the research productivity. As you know, no matter what kind of research you're doing, you really need more than time. You need resources, such as finances. You need to have merit or bonus pay. Sometimes you receive pay from your grants to offset your state salary or another salary, so that you do have time and you can buy out your time. There's often an opportunity for profit sharing. There's oftentimes, particularly if you commercialize some of your products, there will be payback to the faculty member as well as to the institution and sometimes the partner organization or business. And financial incentives can also come from internal funding. And at the University of South Florida, of course, we have internal funding that will support, particularly will particularly support funding for faculty who will be going abroad to do research or will be going abroad to do a presentation. Expand the criteria for career advancement to include collaborative research, and add that to, including publication, add that to the promotion and tenure criteria, not necessarily written into the criteria, but certainly count it as being very important to advance a faculty member's career. Many dedicated offices, Kiki showed that very large sphere with all of the different offices that support international research. And there are many of them. You have to be concerned about export controls. You have to be concerned about how you transfer money, take money, how you travel, report, and other kinds of administrative issues. So besides having one office, as has been pointed out, many offices really need to help the global researcher. And there have to be non-financial resources that are often personnel support, including graduate students or technical support that will go along with somebody working on an international project. It can also be equipment in your own lab and ways of bringing international faculty to come over to your university to work with you. So travel and funding for those individuals is also another way to support international collaboration. And then technology transfer offices, activities, and projects to support innovation is very important. Rewarding international work. There aren't a lot of rewards that are given specifically for international work or for collaborative work. So you can have different kinds of rewards to advance careers, as we've already mentioned. You can have young stars or recognize junior faculty for what they do, or books or publications that they produce, or their innovation or their entrepreneurship or their mentorship of students that work globally or work or travel globally to connect with other partners. Can have a support office for applications for prestigious honors and awards that identify what kinds of awards you might give to someone who is doing international research, and even a gala event for achievement in research in general, but a special tribute to those who are working collaboratively, and letters from the Chancellor, the Rector, or the equivalent leadership to say to students, say to faculty, this has been a great effort on your part and is recognized by the university for what contributions are being made that benefit the university in reputation and sometimes in finances as well. And celebrating innovation. About, I'm going to say 10 years, maybe not even that long, maybe 8 or so years ago, the University of South Florida started the National Academy of Inventors to recognize faculty who invent. In many cases, those who invent, those who get patents are not necessarily recognized. So this was to encourage inventors who had a patent issued by the National Patent and Trademark Office. Because in many venues, this increases the visibility of the university in recognition of the kinds of things that are achieved in terms of innovation, in terms of activities that are intellectually, academically, and financially beneficial. It encourages disclosure of intellectual property, encourages the transition of patents that benefit society. So the National Academy of Inventors now, many universities that are part of it. There are fellows of the National Academy. They have annual meetings. And the goal is really to encourage more people to become involved in being an innovator and to patent their work and to, in many cases, commercialize it. So KIKI, I think I passed. I guess I'm not quite ready to, I'm sorry, I did that. I went backwards again. So KIKI, I'm back to you for metrics.
I was just going to add that the National Academy of Inventors also includes international colleagues as well. So anyone who has a U.S. patent is eligible. Okay, so I'm back to some metrics, and so for those institutions that are interested in documenting the impact and return on investment of international research, there are a number of ways to go about it. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, and you may have additions to it, but certainly the mobility of personnel, or it could be faculty researchers or graduate or undergraduate students traveling internationally to conduct research or to attend a conference or symposium, congress, or similarly engage in a research setting. And then I think also for mobility as well, the number of, actually, I meant to say on this slide, personnel engagement. That's my bad. The number and percentage of faculty or researchers actively engaged in international research projects. So one way to measure that is what portion of salary or tuition is being taken care of by a funded international project. But you may have other ways at your university of accounting for projects that are international in scope, but perhaps are not receiving external funding. And that would go for your faculty researchers and your students as well to see how many are engaged. So forgive my error on the slide. Personnel engagement. Grants and contracts, of course, right? The number and percentage of those with an international collaborators, how we thought about it here. And then the number and percentage of awards from international funding source, or the value of a project with an overseas component. Expenditures in dollars and percent of total, and again, the value of research that's funded by foreign sponsors for contracts, all different ways of thinking about the research portfolio. Additional metrics, obviously bibliometrics and publications and citations are easily gathered and easily measured, and there are a number of ways to look at that data here. The percent of publications, citation impact, downloads, as more and more publications go online, views, downloads, other ways of measuring the reach of a internationally co-authored publication. Karen mentioned the importance of patents. Again, sometimes a somewhat overlooked endeavor of faculty at universities, one that the University of South Florida has made a special attempt at recognizing and rewarding faculty for disclosing innovation. Prestigious prizes, the number of awards and prizes, we may measure them in the US by AAU or CARU metrics, but there are other metrics out there. Fulbright certainly is an important one there, and the dollar value of international prizes awarded. So there are lists and lists of international awards that you might consider as prestigious for faculty and students. And then partnerships, the number of active partnerships that include a research component and active research collaboration, the number of researchers inbound and outbound who are participating with a partner, working with a partner, and what are the outputs of that partnership, whether they be research, technology, commercialization, invention disclosure, creative endeavors for those in the arts, lots of ways of thinking about how to measure the outcomes of partnerships. And then to conclude, so we can turn it over to our audience for questions, we've taken some text from a recent APLU, Association of Public and Land Grant Universities publication, including our universities in the US, Canada, and Mexico, calling for a renewed leadership in terms of internationalization of the university. And we've simply highlighted that a number of the recommendations have to do with the importance of research and international research for metrics and funding, resources, and working with VPR's Vice Presidents of Research to promote innovative international research in an area of scarce resources where working together we can put together funding easily than we might on our own. So just highlighting there that there's a sense across many large universities of the importance of these endeavors. And then finally, I tried to shade some of these cells, but I'm not seeing them quite so clearly in this slide. But our university research ecosystem is not only those entities within the university, those offices that support and contribute to research efforts, but also our larger ecosystem, right? Nonprofits, government, our university partners domestically and internationally, our local community, industry and business, and our economic and workforce development agencies. So simply trying to present a visual of how many pieces of the puzzle there are to a university research ecosystem and how important it is for us to create bridges across these various entities and to find ways of collaborating so that we are able to really be a hub, function as a hub or as a part of a hub for knowledge innovation. So that concludes our presentation, and I know Karen and I are both, and Claire and
yes,
Liz are here to take your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to both of you. That was so fascinating, and I know we're already starting to get some questions in. So I will kick it off with one question already chatted in. It's very interesting to see the notions of multidisciplinarity, transnational, transinstitutional, emerging as trends or forces reshaping our institutions in international academic collaboration as we go forward. But this goes against the academic silo logic of the traditional universities. So what would be necessary to motivate the structural and cultural changes needed at our institutions for them to thrive?
Kiki, why don't you start?
Okay. So I'm going to assume that we're talking about the disincentives for working across disciplines. So I would say number one, and Karen mentioned it, we have a number of suggestions in our book for how to support researchers in their international endeavors. So number one is leadership from the top. Right. So when your senior leadership is invested in supporting and promoting and rewarding global efforts, it makes a big difference. So again, I think that cannot be overlooked. Two, having the infrastructure in place to support researchers. And then three, educating our colleagues at the department level about ways of maybe thinking about tenure and promotion or promotion criteria differently than we have in the past. I often feel like in academia we are way behind in the way we think about promoting and assessing contribution to society and to our discipline. So that's a tall order, but we have taken that on at USF. We've added some language to our promotion career advancement documents that allow researchers who are globally engaged, who are engaged in community engaged research, to have an avenue where that work is valued.
I would chime in also with, if we look at our major funding agencies today, you look at NIH, you look at NSF, USAID, all of them promote interdisciplinary research. And in fact, some of them actually require that you bring in different disciplines than the ones that are primarily working on the project that's been designed. For example, bringing in the social scientists, bringing in the humanists, to go along with the very hard science kinds of problems. So I think the funding agencies are really a strong stimulus for getting this off the ground as well and promoting it as being very valuable for the institution. So that's one other way.
That's great. And maybe as a follow-up question about kind of incentives and structures, you mentioned a lot of the incentives that you have in place for faculty and to promote international research collaboration among your faculty. How, though, do you kind of align all of those interests and track them all? Can any faculty member just do anything they want, or is there an incentive to try to align and be part of a centralized strategy?
I think it depends on the size of your institution. At a place like the University of South Florida, Tampa, there are lots of opportunities for people to come together around similar things that they're interested in, regardless of what department that they're in, and they develop centers. All one has to do is look at the number of centers that pop up at universities to see how many people are interested. For example, if you think of aging. Aging is a topic that is health-related. Aging is a topic that's financially related. It's physically related. It's infrastructure related. You can come up with any kind of thing that is related to that. So I think that is one way that it happens. Kiki, I'll let you chime in with anything you want to add. Maybe she's not on the line.
So
okay.
I'm here. I'm here. Can you not hear me?
No,
I can now.
You can't hear me. Okay. So I think from maybe our administrators' perspectives, we would prefer that all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we would prefer, for strategic purposes, if all our faculty worked with partners in which we have invested resources and time and energy. The faculty are creative and they're going to work where they need to work on the topics that they are engaged with. And so our job isn't to stifle that creativity, but what we do is we offer incentives for those faculty who find partners, collaborators, at those institutions that we've designated as our strategic partners. So again, we're not going to stop faculty from going where they need to go to do the research that's impactful for their discipline. But we are going to incentivize strategic collaboration with those partners that we've identified as ones in which we wish to invest institutional resources.
Great. And now I know we started a little late, so we'll have time for maybe one or two more questions, even though we're over the hour. So thanks to everyone for your patience. We have a couple more questions coming through. One is, how can we handle the connection between real market business and higher education, considering companies require long-time experience from new recruits?
I'm not sure that companies, I'm interested in that question because I'm not sure that they do require a long time experience from new recruits. It seems to me today that workforce preparedness is more than simply disciplinary experience and knowledge in your field, but today from what we are perceiving in the workforce is people are looking for more soft skills and feel that they can train people within their company in some of the hard skills and in some of the things that they're doing better because they are more focused than maybe what they come out of the university doing. But they need to mix together both the hard skills and the soft skills, and all of the soft skills, being creativity, critical thinking, team building, leadership, entrepreneurship, and you can go on with lists and lists of those kinds of things, as well as personal characteristics such as drive, ambition, and all of those kinds of things. So I'm interested in thinking that they need to have a very deep understanding or a deep level of experience in the discipline that they are prepared within.
Kiki, anything to add?
I think too that sure. So most universities, large research universities are going to have research parks and incubators on campus. And that's a great way to bring industry to campus and to get the campus out to the business world. So, any types of collaboration that can happen between university researchers and industry and that involves students, right? Because again, it's really important for our partners to have trust in one another, and it's hard to do that when you don't have a personal relationship. So we haven't really talked about research park to research park collaboration, but that's another way. A research park in the U.S. collaborating with activities of research park in Brazil or Argentina or even Colombia. Other ways than just researcher to researcher are ways that we can provide avenues for industry to learn about what we do and become involved in what we do and involve university business, university personnel in industry.
Great, thank you. Oh, yes.
I'll just quickly add, and most of us are preparing our students with a lot of experiential opportunities, in particular internships. And even our small university with only 2,100 students, we have over 400 internships. And we encourage every student to have some internship before they graduate or more than one. So they get involved in real life experiences in the disciplines that they're going to be working in. And we do a lot of shadow days of our students as well, so that they do get a real feel for the workforce that they're going to be entering.
Wonderful. A question came in that based on your presentation, there's strong evidence for promoting international collaboration. However, from a governmental perspective, how does one validate financial incentives for international collaborators visiting inbound, where it seems like most of the benefit is going towards a foreign person?
That's a tough one.
We may not have
the international office, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to fall back on a crutch. One of the best avenues is the Fulbright Program.
Yeah.
We send hundreds and hundreds of scholars out and bring hundreds and hundreds of scholars in on that program, and it is a U.S.-funded program. So oftentimes there are ways, it's tricky, it's not easy, and there are ways for individuals in countries where there's a U.S. AID mission to obtain a grant and write a U.S. PI into that grant for some of that work. There are a few avenues through the National Science Foundation to add an international collaborator. There are, through the Fogarty Center at the National Institutes of Health, there are a few ways. It's not easy. One of the strategies that we've been trying at USF is the Marie Curie grants through the EU. They are expressly for mobility and can be used for a U.S. researcher to go abroad or to bring in a colleague from another country to your lab or facility. So I would not, it's complex and it's difficult, but with some ingenuity, there are ways, and hopefully your university or our universities are investing some of our own funds in making this type of collaboration happen.
Karen, anything to add?
No, I would just say that the benefits of bringing international colleagues to our university is so much more than simply doing the research, but it's the cultural and the intercultural interactions that are so critically important, and not only for the purpose of doing the research or doing the activities, but exposing our own students to a variety of different people that they're going to be working with the rest of their life, no matter where they're working, whether they work abroad or working here. So I think the benefits we gain from our international students, colleagues, scholars, whoever comes abroad, is beyond money. And ideally, if we can help that, it's a good thing. But I think finding the funds to do that, other than what KIKI has mentioned, through outside grants, Fulbright, of course, is ideal.
One other strategy is to send graduate students to and from. It can be more difficult to cover the salaries and expenses of faculty. So one strategy might be to exchange graduate students in a lab. And that can help facilitate relationships and build projects, and can be a little bit less financially cumbersome than faculty exchanges, although faculty exchanges are ideal.
And of course, so many of our faculty are international anyway, so that's very valuable.
That's wonderful. I think that's a really great note to end on, and I'm going to hand it back over to Louise to kind of close us out. But I do want to thank Karen and KIKI for all of this wonderful information today. And also, because we ended on a Fulbright note, I would be remiss to not mention that if anybody would like more information about Fulbright, which is funded in the United States by the U.S. Department of State, please feel free to get in touch with me directly, as IIE is the proud implementer of this program in the U.S., and we partner with LASPAO in many parts of Latin America to administer the program as well. So any questions you have about that, please let us know. Thank you again to our panelists, and Luis, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you much. It's been a fascinating conversation, and there's many components to what has been discussed today. I like that the note about the pertinence of mobility, and if we fall back again onto the conference theme, that promotes the construction of international knowledge hubs and innovation and transferability and the acceleration of innovation through various components. And that seems to be maybe something that's a shared concern across the board, and something that we can all build upon, because that it just seems easy fruit. But as we get ready to wrap up today's session, I would like to express my most sincere gratitude to our speakers, Karen and KIKI, for your time and for your willingness and your patience, and especially to Claire as well, our moderator today. Thank you so much on behalf of the organization. And
thank you.
We're really appreciative for all your time. I would also like to thank the Institute of International Education, one of CAEI's associate members and member of the conference's academic committee, for facilitating today's session. If it had not been for IE, we would not be here today. So thanks to our partners for that. And then finally, I have a quick happy note for everyone. I've been given green light to share good news. I'm very pleased to announce that the deadline for submitting proposals for parallel sessions has been extended to Friday, May the 31st. So we get another 3 weeks to prepare your proposals and submit them in time. The online platform for submissions is available on our website. And
to join us in Colombia.
Yes, indeed. So again, the deadline for submitting parallel session proposals has been extended to Friday, May 31st, and we look forward to your submissions. And just because I don't want anyone to not get this bit of news, se los voy a decir también en español. Así es que, para que quede claro que es la buena noticia. Por último, me da mucho gusto anunciar que se extendió la fecha límite para presentar propuestas de sesiones paralelas. La nueva fecha es el viernes 31 de mayo, lo cual nos da 3 semanas más para poder entregar. El formulario electrónico para sus propuestas está disponible en el sitio web del CAEI. De nueva cuenta, la fecha límite para enviar sus propuestas de sesiones paralelas se amplió hasta el 31 de mayo. Así es que esperamos sus propuestas con gusto. Agradecemos a todos su tiempo y su participación. Los esperamos en el tercer webinario de la serie que está programado ya para el mes de julio. Les haremos llegar la información y les estaremos también publicando en el sitio web del CAEI. Saludos aquí desde Colombia, país anfitrión del CAEI de este año. Thank you, Karen, all the way to Florida.
Thank you very much.
Claire, have a good day out in New York. Y saludos desde Montreal para todos. Muchas gracias de nueva cuenta. Hasta la próxima. It's been a pleasure.
Muchas gracias.